why this is my favorite tree?
Why?
Because it's tipped over. And it's still growing. That's kind of cool.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold.
Hello, everyone.
We are so excited. Vanessa and I are here. We're so excited to dive into another great film from our history, The Florida Project, written and directed by Sean Baker, one of the all-time, really one of my favorite filmmakers right now. Vanessa, wouldn't you agree that he's just like such an innovator?
So he's unbelievable. Yeah, his movies are just charming nonstop right now. They're just working.
They're working, and they're all such like world creations, and he's such an innovator and visualist, and we're so pumped to dive in with one of the film's producers, Alex Sachs, who is a dear friend, such an amazing producer in and of herself, and can't wait to hear the story of the Florida Project. So let's get going.
Let's dive in.
Alex Sachs, today we're here to talk about you've become such a prolific producer, and we've known each other a while, but now we're just becoming like girlfriends, good friends recently, and so good to like get to know you again. And so there are many movies we could have chosen, but today we're going to talk about the Florida Project, which is to our loyal listeners, if you have not seen this movie, do yourself a favor. It is such a flight of fancy. It is so unique, and the backdrop is so heightened, set in Orlando against the backdrop of the Magic Kingdom, but it's actually quite a sort of intense, grounded tale of the people who live in these sort of motels. And so, Alex, I want you to take me back to your first memory of this project, how you got involved, and just tell me the story of how it got made, because it is an extraordinary movie. And just watching it again, it's just so beautifully shot, and you guys shot on film and all this stuff that like you pulled off.
We did. Yeah. So it has a similar story as a few of the first movies that I produced, which is that I was a finance and packaging agent at ICM, and I had been sort of one of the junior agents, younger agents on Sean Baker's team. So I by no means pointed the sale of Tangerine, but I was involved and sort of watched it happen. And Sean had some other projects that occasionally I'd get roped into a meeting or whatnot, and I was a big fan of his early work. And then the last year I was there was the year that Tangerine went to Sundance, and we sold it, and then it went and had this life at the Gothams, and Sean really popped as a filmmaker that year, which was 2015.
And Alex, like, just to set the table about the movie specifically, like, just tell the sort of narrative that was out in the world about Sean when Tangerine came, right? Like, the whole thing was like he had shot it on an iPhone. He was just kind of this like genius who, made a movie for nothing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So Sean had made a few movies up until that point. All of them had been well under $200,000, the budgets of all of them. And yes, Tangerine, he shot entirely on an iPhone at a donut shop in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard. And yeah, he became, just like you said, he'd been a wonderkin for many years. He'd had like deep respect in like the deep indie world, but Tangerine is really what popped him into, frankly, other people outside of the indie space realizing that he was a filmmaker to watch. After having made, Tangerine was his fourth film, which is so funny because most people think it's his first. And so after we sold Tangerine, several months later, in the summer of 2015, I first heard the idea for the Florida Project. And at that point, again, I was one of his agents. We were going to be looking for a financing partner to effectively partner with him, write him a check to go make this movie when he was ready to do it, hopefully in the next year or two. And the log line or the takeaway was it's a modern day version of The Little Rascals set outside of Orlando, Florida, in a town called Kissimmee, under the shadow of Disney World, set in these theme motels where the hidden homeless lived. And it's about this band of little rascals and their exploits. And from the second I heard that log line, I was like in love.
Totally.
And at the time, I just wanted to help him find the money. So we had, a lot of people that were interested, et cetera. Fast forward to 6 months, and I'm about to leave the agency with a financing client and start a company that is going to finance and produce independent films.
Okay.
And luckily, the partner that I had at the time was very interested in social advocacy in general and very interested in the advocacy of children specifically. And so I pitched him the log line and I told him to go watch Tangerine, which was kind of funny. And he loved the idea and he really enjoyed Tangerine. I don't know what his exact impressions of it were, but he trusted me and said, great, what does he need? And I told him, and I said, look, this is one where, we are in support of Sean. This is his show. We gave him final cut. It was really, and look, I trusted him because I knew him. Not only did I trust what the work product would be, but he had a team around him that I'd worked with a little bit. And honestly, it was really easy. So come February of 2016, we sat in a room with him and our soon-to-be producing partners, Kevin Chenoy and Francesca Silvestri, and we teamed up and we basically, and look, that was the whole point of the company. The point of the company was to support independent filmmakers, but like really support them, not just with money, but then, help them go make exactly what they wanted to make, how they wanted to make it. And for Sean, that was really non-traditional. But again, I think because he knew me a little bit from ICM. And look, the reality was we wanted him to make what he needed to make and we wanted to help him do that. And that was it. We did that one meeting and then we got into paperwork and that was it.
Off to the races. So were you with that company, Alex, because I know you as like a very, very hands-on producer. You're very like nuts and bolts beginning to end. Were you able to do that on that film or were you just like sort of in support on that film?
Sean's films are different. Sean's films are different because Sean does so much Sean's a producer as well, genuinely. And he really does. Here's what I love about working with Sean is I get to exercise a different skill set on his movies and sometimes I get to exercise on others. And sometimes that means just being the calming voice or the person who's literally there to tell him that it's going to be okay when things are really hard. And by the way, and sometimes it is problem solving. And my role on Red Rocket was vastly different to my role on the Florida Project. So on the Florida Project, we sort of, from the jump, we were also very busy. We had a lot of movies going on while they were scouting and developing. So I didn't end up getting there until production. And the reality is there was plenty of work for all to do because of the way we make these movies. The crews are so small. And Florida Project was much bigger than Red Rocket, but it really, it's not traditional script development. It's not, casting's traditional. Sure, that's easy. Deal making is traditional to a certain extent, but a lot of the way that Sean works, it's really letting him steer the ship and you're there to jump in when he needs you. And by the way, and sometimes that's like running to Dollar General to buy a prop that we forgot.
Right.
It's really the whole gamut of everything. And again, and then, sometimes it's figuring out a location issue. It really depends on the day. And I think the thing with Sean, I think part of the reason the movies are so incredible is because he lends himself to inspiration and things happening in real time on the day. Mm-hmm. And that means that scenes and what we're shooting can change at a moment's notice. And that can be very challenging for production, very challenging.
Yeah.
And so there's also, you just really learn to roll with the punches and to become very convincing and to beg and get locations to extend your stay or switch a day when you're already there. It's like nothing I've ever encountered on other movies. But like I said, that's part of how he captures the magic. He's really so open to kind of letting it flow. I mean, Florida Project, interesting example is like the helicopters in the movies. Mm-hmm. The touring helicopters that they like wave to occasionally and you hear in the movie. Those were not scripted. Those were real tourist helicopters that were operating on an hourly basis.
Shut up.
Where we were shooting. And after paying them off like twice, which cost like $1,000 an hour, we were like, well, we can't keep doing this. And so Sean wrote it into the movie. Like,
oh my God.
So this is what I mean. This is the like, it starts raining. Okay. Can we use that for the scene, or do we leapfrog to another scene in the movie? It's the ability to pivot and the agility of the filmmaking. I mean, I think it would put most people like in the hospital. It can be so stressful, but once you surrender to it, it produces some really incredible
magic,
creative options and magic.
You know, it's so funny because, Alex, I just did a podcast before this of my stepfather who wrote The Sting, and he was talking about George Roy Hill's process. And George Roy Hill, who is like a total traditionalist, sat with my dad for weeks on end, going through every single scene, every single line, understanding the motivation of the line, shooting the film to a T, right? And that was his preparation. Compare that to Sean. Is first of all, is the script of traditional 110-page script, or is it a little bit more improvisational? Like, just talk to me about his process and his prep work.
So both of the movies that I've done with him, we had scripts.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly, Florida Project was a little more in flux than Red Rocket was.
Yeah.
I think Red Rocket, and I might be misspeaking, but I think that was the most kind of buttoned up that we may have been from a story perspective going into shooting.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff he had done previously was improv. And by the way, there's a ton of improv. And with the kids, there was so much. It's
like they're not pros. Like, you got to kind of go with what they're doing, right?
Exactly. But as you know, there is quite an intricate plot line to the Florida Project. So that obviously was constructed, but I'll say there were the motivations of what's happening to the characters, especially Haley, Bria's character. There were different motivations for her when we were 2-3 months out, because Sean had not spent enough time in the community to understand the things that were actually sort of plaguing the people that were living there. He writes everything so specific and so true to life that the reason why things were changing a lot of times is because he'll go speak to one of our cast members who's usually a non-actor that lives in the area, or just one of the contacts we've made, and he'll discover that sex work is really prevalent in the area instead of drug dealing. And I don't even remember that that's what it was. And so we'll do a big change because of that. And it's just rolling with it and knowing and really having faith that it's just getting better and better. And like I said, in my experiences with him, it does. But luckily, for whatever reason, from the outset, we really were able to just trust him. And I think it's because of all the movies he had done previously. I so heavily regarded. And again, and the way he talks about it just gives a lot of confidence.
Don't you think we're going too far? No, just come on. Don't be a loser. Don't call me that, but okay.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But some opinions are more useful than others. And we all want the good ones. The ones that shake things up, spark debates, and change minds. Financial Times readers know that their opinions are reliable because they're shaped by trusted journalism. Robust opinions, confident decisions. Source FT. To subscribe, go to ft.com/sourceft.
Hair thinning can happen for so many reasons. Whether it's stress or hormones or anything, at Nutrafol we've learned that real change starts below the surface. Our hair growth supplements take a whole body approach and target the key root causes of hair thinning, so you can see visibly thicker, stronger hair in 3 to 6 months.
Hair growth starts from the inside at Nutrafol.com. That's Nutrafol.com.
Water balloons thrown at tourists. You can't fuck with tourists.
They didn't tip us.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh my God, this is unacceptable. I failed as a mother, Mooney. You've disgraced me.
Harley?
Yeah, Mom, you're disgraced.
Alex, I want to ask you about the specific, there's the sort of hero hotel. Did you guys control that entirely? Like, were those all hired actors, or were you guys working around people who were just like inhabiting that space?
We inhabited a handful of the rooms, both like for where we were shooting, and then we had like an office in one of them and holding or something.
Wow.
But no, it was a fully working, the people that live there long term were living there, and a lot of them are in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, when you're shooting a scene and there's just like kids running back and forth through the halls or whatever, those were just people who were like living there, presumably?
Some of them, yes. And some of them were cast that because look, there were some people that were living there that didn't want to be in the movie, or there were some people in the other motels that we had scouted. There's also in all the movies you do with Sean, I mean, we do casting. We'll, go to the Walmart parking lot and ask people if they want to be in a movie. It's not, on Florida Project, we did have casting directors. Red Rocket, we didn't because of COVID. But so the producers are all kind of doing it. And so it depends on which of the scenes, but yeah, some of the people are real people and some of them might've been from another motel or someone that we found somewhere else.
So talk to me about how you guys handled Willem through that, because that feels like a very non-traditional approach. And, I've talked to a lot of producers of filmmakers who are non-traditional. They just do things differently than the sort of traditional approach to filmmaking, which is like very organized and communicated and this and that. Yeah. Was Willem just sort of up for it? Like he knew what he was getting up into, or what did it take a minute?
Anyone knew what they were getting into is the honest truth. Because I also think all of Sean's movies are different, genuinely. Even people, even when you've worked on one before, the next one brings a whole different set of challenges.
Interesting.
100%. But we got very lucky that Willem is an actor who likes to hang out on set when he's not in a scene. Like don't worry, we didn't have trailers on that movie, but it, I think the thing is, and Florida Project was one of my early films, but something that I started doing even before that film, and I still do long after on my indie movies, is I'm just very direct with the reps. And now that I've been doing this long enough, I usually talk to the talent directly before they land on set so that I can, and it's not meant to scare them. It's literally meant to say, on any given, you don't have hair and makeup. You don't have this, but you have my cell phone number and we want you to be comfortable. And if something's really not okay, shout. And we'll fix it. And so there were some things that we had to make sure that Willem had, but I mean, such a walk in the park, especially based on the fact that we were really throwing him into an experience that I really don't think he ever had encountered before. But he really was so game, and I'm sure it was challenging, especially because of the way the script and the story changes.
It's funny because I read that he actually became quite protective of a lot of these sort of non-professional actors that you guys had hired. Is Bria the name of the mother? Is that the
yes.
And that you guys had found her off of Instagram, like she was selling clothes or something, and Sean sort of encountered her. Can you tell me like a little bit about that and what that was like?
Yeah. So, Sean had been looking for, in his words, like a young Angelina Jolie, and really felt like he wasn't finding her based on who was available to us or interested in acting in an independent movie. And so, as Sean does, he looks for inspiration everywhere. He's not afraid of non-actors or the ability to get them where they need to go with the help of his partner, Samantha Kwan, who was our acting coach for both Bria and the kids on this movie, who was incredible. And he found Bria, I think she came up like on his Explore page. And I remember when he called us and said, I found this, and he was so genuinely scared of I think what the reaction was going to be. And I remember calling my partner after, and we kind of both said at the same time, we were like, we're going to cast her. We trust him. Like, that's who he wants. It's not that the hunt, it's not that we weren't searching. Like, he was very clear about what he wanted from the get-go, and we weren't finding it. So when you have someone as brilliant as Sean is, who's being a really respectful partner, approach you and say, this is what I want to do, our only job was to say yes. And so, we watched the videos and all of it, but, the reality was the movie that we were making was insane anyway. I mean, our lead cast were 5-year-olds. Like, what? No point in like trying to curb it now. So we really just went all in. And I think we also knew that this team that we were working with for the first time, I think we were kind of so in awe at the work ethic of everyone, and the fact that like everybody was pouring their blood, sweat, and tears. And there was no one was like trying to pull the wool over our eye on casting an unknown actress. It was just kind of, this is what you signed up for. Maybe we thought we were going to get a big actress for that role, because frankly we did. But when Sean posed it to us, again, that's, I think, where like, when it's funny because I use that moment sometimes to gauge how much I'm trusting other filmmakers that I'm working with.
Yes.
Because I had not a shadow of a doubt in saying yes and supporting him. And so when I don't feel that now on things, it's a bit of a red flag for me.
Well, I have two things to say to that, which is the same thing happened for us on Beasts of No Nation, which was the only professional actor we had was Idris Elba. We were shooting in Ghana, in Africa, not even in Accra, in like 2 hours outside of Accra. There was no hub of technology or industry there at all. So we were in the middle of nowhere. And Carrie was like, I'm not going to hire any more professional actors. Like, we're going to find the entire cast on soccer pitches, and that's just what it's going to be. And I remember Amy Kaufman saying, I trust him. And I was like, oh, I do too. Like, he was rewriting that script like every weekend. It was like we had to shoot in sequence because like he was constantly evolving because of like the time and place of where he was.
Fascinating. Yeah, that would be smart. We should have done that.
And I was like, I trust him. Like, but you don't always, right? You don't always. And I was so trusting that it was going to work also, that like it was all going to come together, and the crew we had, and it wasn't like a pleasant shoot. Like, people were very unhappy on that film. But we all knew that it was working and the footage was working and it was sort of magical. And so my question I throw to you is like, sometimes you sign up for a movie because you just believe. Like, you believe it's meant to be something special. And I believe the Florida Project is really something special and will only continue to sort of find its audience over time. Did you and the crew just believe? Because that can't have been an easy several weeks of shooting.
Yeah. No, it was hard. It was, and I actually think at one point, if I'm remembering correctly, that like Sean either put an article out or something about like an apology to the crew for how hard it was. Or it was just an interview and he like apologized. I forget exactly what it was. And it's so funny because obviously like a lot of us continue to make movies with him. Like so much of our crew on Red Rocket, which was insanely hard, all did Honora with him. So it's this, yes, it's you look at his past work and you know that you are in the presence of a master filmmaker, honestly. And that happens so rarely. But it doesn't, look, do I wish that it was more fun and less stressful sometimes? Yeah, but like we had our moments, is the honest truth. It was really hard. I ended up in the hospital on the Florida project.
Alex, you must tell me why.
Well, my body was run down and I got some sort of stomach bug and my body just couldn't recover. Oh. So I just ended up having to go in for IVs, but I was like down for the count for like 5 days. So it was like, and by the way,
it's not funny. It's horrible.
By the way, it would be less funny if it hasn't happened to me more than once. Which is
oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like crying. Yeah.
Which is how I know that I'm like really like need to turn the dial back in terms of just like my general workload is just like now. I couldn't at the time. And I was like, I think I was 29 when we made Florida Project. Like I didn't know how to listen to my body. I just like, I was flying back and forth from Florida to LA like every week and going up to New York. It was stupid. It was like as if I was some sort of like superhero physically, and my body just responded that I wasn't, and I needed some rest. But yeah, it was hard, and a lot of the people in the motels, we had like a lice outbreak at the beginning of shooting, which was a whole thing, which is just kind of like the nature of what you're doing. And so that was really hard.
Did you get lice? Did you get lice?
I didn't, because actually I had lice as a child and it was a really traumatic experience, and my mom cut off all my hair. So I remember my exec called me, who was on the ground. This was like 3 days out from shooting and we were going to live together. And she was like, I have it. And I was like, I'm not coming. I was like, I'll be there when it's gone. Like, not cutting off all my hair again. I love this movie, but this is what I mean, it was, but then you also, Sean and Samantha and Coco are some of my closest and dearest friends.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a really, it's a strange sort of summer camp.
I only laugh because I relate, and the number of independent film producers in particular that I hear got malaria or got lice or went into the hospital for shingles or, have an ongoing ulcer. It's a very unique group that can really just laugh through the pain, Yeah. And at that point, Alex, there was no question. You were making the movie and you were going to of course, get out of the hospital as quickly as you could to get back to set because there was some other crisis that needed your attention. And it's not like you're getting paid $1 million for it or even are going on to the career that Sean Baker has, right? We're back to the beginning, building the next broken, rickety ship that we're going to take, to the new world. And so I only just laugh because, it's the journey we've chosen and we love it.
Opinions will always differ, and so they should, because everyone draws from different influences. Parents, peers, politics, education, media, culture. What you believe depends on who you believe. Financial Times readers know that their opinions are reliable because they're shaped by trusted journalism. Robust opinions, confident decisions. Source: FT. To subscribe, go to ft.com/sourceft.
It's interesting too, though, because those, in my, we made a lot of movies in that first year of our company.
You
we
were
made
so
like 5
prolific.
movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what I will say is I didn't know and I didn't realize how much we would always be starting over from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after I realized that you don't just get to keep making movies with the same filmmakers, and you don't have sort of a guaranteed product flow or anything really. Like none of this, sure, in some ways the job gets easier because you get more experience and your relationships deepen and whatnot. But in a lot of ways, it's just as hard. And so the amount I think that I was killing myself in those first couple years, after the first few years, I realized, oh no, like it's physically not tenable to work this hard for this, because as much as I love it and I'm getting done, it doesn't pay back in the way that I thought it would. And I don't mean financially. I mean emotionally. I mean all of it.
Yeah.
It's the satisfaction of the success of the Florida project, unfortunately blew our minds. Could not be more grateful for the life that the movie ended up having. We genuinely had no idea. Our big goal was for it to get into Cannes, period. Everything after was like such gravy on the most epic of scales. But I think when it continued to succeed, the fact that didn't bring a ton more joy or a ton more inner peace and satisfaction was kind of like, okay, right. Maybe we need to check all of this and how much we're pouring into it.
Well, my comp to that is, very early on, I had this company, Plum Pictures, and I had just had I don't know. I don't think I've told you this story. I don't know if I've told the story on the pod, Andrew, but I had just had a baby. I had a movie falling apart with an actress who threatened to quit the film 4 weeks before we were into production, and she was the equity source. Like that was the reason that our equity financiers were bankrolling the film. And up until that point, Plum, our company, had bankrolled it with financial investments from my family, my husband's family.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like, we believe in you, Daniela. We're going to take a shot on this movie. And the other 80% of the financing had just dropped out. And so I had a 6-month-old at home. I was trying to keep the movie together. I was coming home at midnight. My breast milk had dried up. And my husband finally was like, after I pulled it back together and we recast and the equity financiers came in and we saved the movie and we were only delayed 4 weeks. But it was the worst experience of my life. And my husband was like, if you ever put our family under duress like that again, I will divorce you. That's it. This is not our life. And you've given your entire fee to the film because the film can't come in on budget because of the delay. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's literally not worth it. I have to feed my daughter formula now. And because the stress dried up my breast milk, what are we talking about? And so,
100%.
And it even took me years beyond that to really get it. So now I'm I'm not doing a movie without a partner. I'm not sitting on set for 8 weeks straight by myself. There's just certain things that I cannot do anymore. And I'm not going to work for free, which I did for so long. And so, but it's why do we have to put ourselves through this physical pain and drama in order to learn that we're worthwhile? It's the thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
We don't have insurance. We don't have a union. We don't have minimums that as a producer for taking all the risk that we are allowed to just automatically take home. And so we've obviously been talking about this a lot, but
yeah, I think it all has to do with the fact that that in some ways we all think that this is the greatest job in the world and we're so passionate about it and we emotionally connect to it and all of it. And the reality is that I think it just takes a scraping the bottom to realize that yes, that can all be true, and it also can be too much at the same time. And I think in general, boundaries, whatever you need them to be, and they're different for everybody, I think are so critical to being able to continue doing this work, because it does take so much from all of us. And again, I remain someone who thinks it is the best job, and I don't want to do anything else. But in order to live with myself, that means I can't be thinking about it literally the first few years I was producing, I did not know that it was capable for your brain to not think about work 24/7.
Oh my God. Totally.
I didn't know it was possible. The pandemic hit and I was like, wait, there could be space to think about other things.
It's what I tell my team all the time, Alex. I'm like, you have to have a life outside of this, because if you let it, this is it. This is it. This will be, I have friends who this is it. There's nothing else. And then 100%. You're like 70 and you're like, wow, well, I have got these great posters and a couple awards.
So true. And look, it's not, and it's funny because in a non-joking way, when younger people ask me for advice or whatnot, that's one of the things I say when they're like, how did you do it? I'm like, well, I did not have a life for this many years. And I didn't think about anything else. I didn't date. I didn't have a boyfriend. I missed weddings. I didn't visit my sister who lived overseas. Like, I missed my life. And now I just don't do that. Or at least I really try not to. And strangely, I actually think it makes me better when I am present in my work.
Totally.
And I'm less irritable, and I'm just like a little more inspired generally. And I think it really is, my best ideas usually come when I have downtime.
That's same.
And for years I had no downtime.
Mooney, why'd you take me on this adventure? I didn't know it was going to rain. Did you not even watch the news? I never watch the news. It's so boring. I watch the news. It's not that boring.
Hear that? That's the beginning of a journey powered by the confidence that comes from driving a vehicle so reliable, it's backed by a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. Where your journey ends? Well, that's up to you. Visit your local Kia dealer today. Kia, movement that inspires.
See retailer for warranty details. Always drive safely. Limited inventory available.
You let her just run away?
Hey, will you please just...
And I'm the one who's unfit? Fuck you!
So that's our treatise on producing and how it sucks. But back to Sean Baker.
Yes.
I want to sort of get back because he is such a unique filmmaker, and I just so fascinated by him altogether. And he has this other film, Honora, coming out. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I have not seen it. I am anxiously waiting to see it in a theater, as one must see all of Sean Baker's films.
We have to. I'm so excited about it as well.
Yeah.
It premiered
No,
at
I'm not
Cannes.
saying it at all facetiously. You have to.
No, let's do it. What were your larger takeaways from him, and why he manages to sort of reinvent himself every time he gets on set? It is unique, right? Because we do know a lot of filmmakers, they have their style, that's their approach. It's their movie. But with him, it just feels like he's always sort of going left or right or zigzagging, you know?
Yeah, I think, I think his commitment to authenticity is one of the biggest takeaways for me, and has led into so many of my other films since working with him. Part of the reason, and it came from John Phillips and Gene Stupnitsky, but part of the reason we ended up setting No Hard Feelings in the Hamptons or in a specific community was a reaction we developed that while I was shooting Red Rocket. And at one point I brought up that I think we need specificity of place and how much that brings because on so many films. But honestly, I don't know anyone who loves films more or who works harder than Sean, genuinely. And so when he won the Palme d'Or a few months ago, and I watched I was in Peru, and I watched his acceptance speech online, I just fucking bawled.
And also you got it. You're like, of course.
No one deserves it more.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely. He is such a lover of and student of this craft in a way that I think people kind of understand, because he, posts his movie poster collection online and he's always posting the movies he's watching, but like, it's really just so impressive. And I think he is thinking it is the great, love of his life.
Right.
Alongside his partner and Bunsen, his dog, and his late dog Booney, who was in Charlotte. But it really, I think when he gets into the filmmaking mode with these characters, he's just living in it, honestly.
Yeah.
And so just like you live a normal day and you wake up in the morning and think about what you want to do or change you might want to make, or that you have to go to the grocery store, like that's kind of what he's living in when we're making these movies. Like there is no other world exists during that time. And I think the same, I spend less time with him when he's editing, but I think it's the same.
Because he edits his own films, right, Alex?
He does. And again, it's all part of this, like, why I think he's continued the work the way he has in the independent space is he very much is someone who listens to his, and I've never heard him say this is what I'm seeing, but listens to his body, listens to his creative spirit. And like, after we stop shooting, like he'll take some time off.
Yeah.
And, he's not 2 weeks later seeing an assembly from an editor and a studio or financier is expecting a 10-week director's cut.
Yeah.
I think for Florida Project, I don't think we saw a cut. I saw stuff a little bit sooner because he was gracious enough to show me stuff, but we didn't see anything for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're long editorial processes. Wow. So it's just everything about it is different, but it's what works for him. And the fact that he's able to follow those instincts, I think is part of why it works. I think for artists, the idea that like everyone's conforming and confounding into a 10-week cut and 2 cuts and 2 previews and look, it's never that cut and dry, but I think for some artists that's not a recipe for creative success. And for him, it certainly wouldn't be, based on how I've seen him work.
I love hearing you say that, Alex, because like the more of these pods I do, and the more I hear producers who work with the great filmmakers, the more I realize that great filmmakers just have to do whatever it is they have to do to make their films great. And obviously the ones who are truly great are secure enough to like utilize their producers and their collaborators as that, and best idea wins, and they're able to sort of evolve and shift according to budget and constraints. But the more I hear about great filmmakers really achieving what great films, it's like they just have to make it work for them. And obviously Sean does that, right? And I also notice that like the truly great filmmakers from Nolan on down, they work harder than anyone. So they're not asking us to work any less hard than they're working. They're probably working way harder than we are. It's just 100%. Sometimes superhuman,
That's exactly right. And I think it is, they are spending such time and energy and they're just giving all of themselves to these projects. And I understand why, because to achieve that level of greatness takes that kind of thoughtfulness and commitment, frankly. But as a producer, it's interesting because I don't know about you, but I can't devote that much time to one project because I have to know when the next one is going, or the one after that, or the one after that, or the 2 that I have in post, or whatever it is. So it's very interesting to sort of watch the differences in how we all work while contributing to the same creative endeavor.
Well, I think that for us to survive, we have to do what you just said. And for someone like Scorsese or Sean Baker or, Nolan or whatever, that for them to survive, they just have to continue to make iconic, incredible material that will just like spur the next one, right? And so they have to go all in on the one thing. But for us to survive, we have to be juggling several things. And so that's always the rub, because I always want to be the right hand to the filmmaker. You want to be that person, but it's,
Well, in my experience, there are a lot of movies where I've been that. And there are an equal amount of movies where I'm not as needed in that way, or I'm needed in that way in certain moments.
Yeah.
In prep and production, I'm almost always that. Post is always a mixed bag of like how much, I've sat in edit rooms for most of post on certain films. And there are others where I never go into the edit and I get cuts when the filmmaker needs me to see them, and I go to the previews and we talk on the phone and all of it. So but I also think that what I've learned over the years, which has made my job A lot more fun, and B has just brought me some peace with all of it, is that it's my job to be malleable to the filmmaker and what he or she or they need, versus this is what I do and how I do it. And thus you, the person who's creatively spearheading this entire ship, should work to my needs. Like we're
not the talent.
The more I am able to abandon my ego, the better the movies that I make is the honest truth.
100%.
Yeah. And so for me, as much as it's really, look, it's nice to be asked to be included in lots and lots and lots of conversations, but not everybody needs that from me. Yeah. Some people do, and that's great, and I feel good about myself. Yeah. But I've become much more comfortable over the years with the fact that I work with a lot of filmmakers, or some filmmakers who don't always need that. Right. Or by the way, they don't think they do, and then we get to the first preview and it turns out they do. Yeah. And then I get back involved on a really sort of,
granular
critical day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, my phone is next to me at all times for when they need me. Yeah. And that's whether that's at 11 o'clock at night over text or a FaceTime in the middle of the day. Like, that's just learning to roll with it and not ascribe any meaning to like why I am or am not being included, because it's not talking about me, is really the honest truth.
No, 100%. I think like I learned that on a set very early on when I was former partners with producer long time ago, and the star of the film wanted her offset. And I remember she was like, I built this entire thing and he won't come on set if I'm on set. And I was like, we're not the talent. Like, the show will run if we step off set. The show will not 100%. Run if that guy doesn't get in front of the camera. And so 100%. That's the deal. Like, you just have to, and it sucks and it's not fair and all those things. But guess what? The movie got in Cannes, And that's just like the moment you learn that as a producer is the moment I think you really become effective. But it's 100%. It can be demoralizing. I am actually super excited about the industry. I don't know why I keep lamenting to you, Alex. I just feel comfortable doing it with you. I'm actually very pumped right now.
Look, I think so too. I also, frankly, it doesn't, I just prefer to be optimistic in general, but I think that there is going to be a lot of opportunity, I think, in the next several years. It may feel, really bad right now in this moment, but it won't be this way forever. And I think, again, to point to my own movie this past weekend, people still want to see movies. They still want us to make them. We'll keep doing it. Yeah. And again, I think feeling good about the work we're doing, that also just makes the work better. Like I said, in my opinion, I'm better I'm better at the work when I'm in positive spirits about it all.
Totally.
And frankly, the moments in my career where I've handled things less than gracefully are the moments that I most regret.
Yes.
Or they're the moments that I feel the worst about. And so back to your point about us not being the talent and leaving our egos, it's like none of those moments, whether I was right in the right or wrong, have never served me.
Yeah.
Ever. And so that lesson also now, again, it doesn't mean I don't like cringe for a second inside, but you know, I had an actor pull out of a movie or push a movie that was like 5 weeks out a month or two ago. And I had a whole crew working, and it's super indie, so no one was getting paid yet. So everyone had done all of this soft prep, and everyone had just been on a scout that no one got paid for. Like everyone donating time.
The worst feeling.
We'd been working on it for a while, and I remember at one point the reps were like surprised, frankly, that I wasn't yelling at them, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck does that do?"
Yeah,
like it helps nothing. Like, this just sucks, and now I'll deal with it. But it's not like it's never happened before, and it certainly won't be the last time.
But it's so funny, Alex, this Joaquin Phoenix thing with the Christine Vachon movie, the Todd Haynes movie, the fact that like he's being a little bit skewered in the trades, I'm just sort of fascinated because like that happens to us all the time. And maybe it's not that extreme, but you get an actor dropping out.
Like I know of a movie or a series that this happened to a year or two ago. Again, literally the weekend before they started shooting, and the whole show imploded.
I think there needs to be a little accountability there. Like that shame on you. This is a professional business that is built on the value of these actors, and to just drop out, it's just not, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's going to end, but
I agree that it's not. I think the problem is we historically do nothing about it. And so someone either needs to sue someone and make an example out of one of these instances to caution people not to do it again. And or the only thing that I will say, because I feel like this does come up a lot when we're in the midst of conflict on any movie, is at the end of the day, we can't force anyone to physically do anything, is the honest truth. And when you're when you not only need someone to like show up to work, but you need them to deliver a performance, if they don't want to do it, it's not going to be good, most likely. So while and again, I'm not saying there shouldn't be repercussions there. I completely agree there should be, but it's all, at the end of the day, it's all just a really shitty situation.
And then, by the way, you get these like very romantic stories. We did the Anthony Bregman for Eternal Sunshine, and Jim Carrey, week one was just like, what the fuck is this? This is a disaster. I want to leave this. I am not doing this movie. And it ends up becoming the most iconic, extraordinary thing of the aughts. And you're like, but that's the best case, And so you like push through because you believe, again, it's
totally
all the.
But I guess if equal parts he could have not done it or stopped doing it. And God, how that would have, I really can't imagine a world where that movie doesn't exist.
Right? It like inspired me to keep going for years.
Yeah.
Anyways, Alex, we got off track, but I do feel like we said stuff that was like more impactful. And I'm like so excited about our conversation, especially in light of the things that like we're just trying to highlight as producers of content that isn't so obvious. And we aren't making Marvel movies, we're just trying to make good stuff that people will love. And so I adore you. Thank you so much for coming on this pod with me. I'll have to bring you back for like many of your other great movies.
Please, I would love to. This was so fun.
You're the best.
This was so lovely. Thank you for having me, Daniela.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Vanessa, that was so fun. I feel like it became a little bit more of a therapy session than a true memory lane walk for the Florida project. But I really feel like Alex Sachs is one of the hardest working producers out there right now. And she just did It Ends With Us. I think she just finished another movie with Amy Schumer. She's really someone who's so creative and hardworking and just really pounding the pavement. And it's such a tough gig these days to stay, afloat as an independent film producer that isn't being, you're not being financed by some big studio behind you. You've got to just create your own hay.
Yeah. No, and I think Sean Baker, especially at the time that the Florida Project came out, was not, he had made one movie before. I don't think he was necessarily this massive filmmaker that everyone wanted to take bets on.
People had been very excited about Tangerine. He had shot that on an iPhone. Everyone was pretty pumped in the independent world, certainly. But who knows what that means, And she really believed in him and went for it. And I love that. I love that about her. And I find that's a very common trait in really successful producers is they just go after what they believe in. And that often leads to successful ventures, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously she's so hardworking and is constantly pounding the pavement and working on movies. And I think eventually when you're doing that enough, you get so good at it that you kind of start understanding how the system works. And I think that she's kind of figured it out. And she knows what the audience wants and she knows how to work with really great filmmakers. And I think it's such a testament to her as a producer.
I think you're right. The more you do it, the more you realize it's just about being bold and not being afraid to be told no. I was listening to this podcast this morning of Scott Galloway, that amazing NYU professor who's so opinionated, and some people hate him and some people love him, but I happen to really love him. And he said true entrepreneurs, if you're trying to play above your pay grade, trying to be successful at something, you have to just be okay with rejection constantly. And you have to just be okay with going after things and knowing that a lot of the time you're going to be told no. And most people don't want to be exposed to that. They go through life not wanting to feel rejected or less than. And I find that a common trait among independent producers is they're willing to be told no. How often do we get told, Vanessa? And it's rolls off the back now. I'm who cares? I get told no literally 80 times a week. And then once in a while you get a good positive thing,
Yeah, and even when the positive things come around, you're I don't know if this is going to work.
Totally. I'm not even confident it's going to work out.
I literally texted you this morning. I was I'm so happy this is all coming together. You're I don't know. We'll see.
I don't want to kill your light, because you have so much positive energy and it's working for us. Your light is really carrying the day in a lot of things. And I'm such an old withered bitch. I can't have the light all the time, but I just love your light. I just want to be around it. So
That's incredibly kind and generous.
Yeah. Just keep lighting that match.
I think when something's actually working, we just have to hold on for dear life.
Totally.
So many things don't work. And I always say, even talking to agents and managers, people sending us projects, I'm you guys, we make potentially 1 to 2 movies a year. So if you're sending me 20 projects a week,
right,
essentially 100% of them are going to be no's. Just, and that's how it is for others.
That is. So we have 2 movies sort of on the runway right now, right? We're starting to get positive movement. We're assembling the packages. Talent is starting to attach. We've got our foreign sales projections, things are coming together. And I literally am they may not happen, but we've been working on them. Literally, Tumor I've been working on for maybe 8 years, maybe more. it's like second only to the Teddy Roosevelt project that'll never get made, you know? And now it's like, it really is on like the starting line, and I can tell like it's starting to get that momentum, that thing you need for like something to actually lift off. But you're right, like an actor could easily fall out tomorrow and then we're sort of back to square one. So I think in like my old wizened age, I've just learned not to get too excited, but continue to believe and push the thing forward. And I think that's the only way to survive in this business right now is just stay steady. Don't go through the highs and lows, because like every other day, it's like the business is saved, the business is crashing, the business is saved, the business is crashing, you know? And so I think we just have to like keep trudging, you know, and stay afloat, which is literally what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, Vanessa, how much money is in overhead? Do we have enough to get to December? Cool. Okay.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. Probably not. It's fine. But you know what? Every movie's a miracle, and when you make a miracle happen, you feel like God. So it's very exciting.
That's so true. I know. There's nothing better. We have our movie Goodrich coming out next week, and we're so excited, and we're finally planning like all the stuff, like all this stuff that we've been planning for months and months and months is like coming to fruition. And we had our premiere, and we're about to have a New York event, and like we're inviting all the people, and suddenly it feels real because your friends actually know about it. And listen, I am so hopeful that people go out and see Goodrich. It's such a good movie. You laugh, you cry. It's like the movies you used to go see as when I was growing up. Feels like a James L. Brooks movie. But, all this energy we've put towards this movie for years, and we have no idea how it's going to go, right? We know it's a good movie, but like the business is such where we don't know if people are going to go to the theaters to see it. And it's just so wild.
And I feel like we've watched this movie 1,000 times, and sometimes I'm like, is it good?
Yeah.
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
And it is. It's a great movie. And sometimes when these clips have been released to the public, I'm watching them and I'm like, oh, that's such a good scene. That dialogue is so great.
Totally.
You kind of forget because you're so close to it. You have no idea.
But it's like sometimes making movies feels like you're playing the races or like the horses. You know what I mean? It's like you've like put all your chips on, lucky number 12. And it's like, who knows? Who knows? You believe in it. You believe in this thoroughbred, but like, who knows?
We've talked about this many times. We're working with the producers of the movie Longlegs, and they have, they've had a couple releases this summer, and that movie just exploded. It was Neon's biggest release ever. And now they're just like, yeah, we're geniuses.
Right. We knew all along.
Maybe.
I mean, like speaking to Dave, he's like, it's wild. It's changed my life. And we witnessed that happen. Like we were along with them along the way, and all of a sudden it's like the biggest movie of the summer. It's just so wild.
It's crazy. And they had 3 movies come out this summer, so I don't think they had, one horse that they were really betting on. They had 3.
Right. It's so funny. What are the other 2? I don't even know.
Exactly.
Anyways, we got off track. Alex Sachs, we love you so much. Hearing about the Florida Project was amazing. We're going to do an episode of Anora in a couple weeks. And so we're pretty psyched to just like do a deep dive on Sean Baker and really like get to understand how he's evolved over the past, I would say like 8 years, 10 years. And so we'll dive in then. But that was so fun. Alex Sachs, you're a gem, and thanks for coming on. Hopefully she'll come back.
Yeah, that was an amazing episode. You guys have to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Hollywood Gold Pod. Go on our website and get yourself some merch on the merch tab.
You're so cute.
Always
so
DM us if you have ideas.
Yep.
So cozy, so cute.
Yeah. So demure.
So demure. I didn't want to say it.
I feel hip. For saying that.
That was hip.
It's almost like
really
hip
good.
like 4 weeks ago. My kids are like, oh, Jesus.
Like no one's saying demure anymore.
No one. But more than anything, guys, just remember to
stay gold.
Stay gold.